Right now on Fox 43 Featured, hospital staffing. Emergency rooms in South Central Pennsylvania are bracing for a potential winter storm this weekend. How hospitals stay prepared during inclement weather. Capitol Rally. U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was at the state capitol this week to promote his department's new dietary guidelines. How his visit also brought protesters who spoke out against his vaccine policies. Mayor hearing. Harrisburg Mayor Wanda Williams testified in her lawsuit against City Council. Details from this week's hearing. Thanks for joining us for Fox 43 Featured. I'm Robert Stover. With winter weather on its way, hospitals across South Central PA are getting ready for possible heavy snow. As Fox 43's Milena Brown explains, from staffing plans to patient safety, healthcare leaders say preparation is key.
As South Central Pennsylvania braces for snow and frigid temps, area hospitals are activating their winter weather plans.
As we know that there's a storm heading our way, we want to make sure that we're still able to care for the patients in our community. So we are looking across the board at all of our staffing.
Hospital leaders say their top priority is making sure patient care continues without interruption, even when roads are dangerous.
On a day-to-day basis, making sure that we're constantly reviewing what else do we need, what else can we prepare for as a hospital and as a hospital system to always have the services at the front line for people who need them.
To do that, hospitals are also focusing on their workforce, like the nurses, doctors, and support staff who need to be able to get to work safely. In some cases, that means providing on-site or nearby overnight accommodations for staff during severe weather.
So we're preparing a lot of space areas, extra uniforms if needed, warm, cozy places for our team members to stay safe so we can continue to care for patients 24/7, whether it's in the emergency department, the operating room, or the inpatient units.
Hospital officials say these steps help ensure that there are no gaps in care, even if conditions worsen overnight. They're also urging patients and families to prepare at home ahead of time.
If you feel like you could run out of a prescription over the weekend and you don't want to travel out to a pharmacy, you have a couple of more days to be able to connect with your physician's office, make sure that you have everything that you need.
Healthcare leaders say a little preparation both inside the hospital and at home can go a long way in keeping everyone safe this winter. Milena Brown, Fox 43 News.
Grocery and hardware stores are seeing a pre-storm wave this week as people stock up ahead of the snow. In Newberry Township, York County, people flocked to Carnes Foods on Thursday to get bread, eggs, and milk for this weekend. People also made their way to Weist Hardware in Cumberland County to get their snowplows, shovels, and rock salt. Store owners say the demand for rock salt is so high that they might run out before the end of the week.
The warehouse that we order from has basically said they're out for the season as well. So the likelihood of us having any more after this storm is pretty slim.
Weist Hardware officials say they are working around the clock to make sure all other winter weather items are fully stocked. And with a winter storm headed our way this weekend, the Lancaster County Homelessness Coalition will be in a code blue. It starts Friday night at 8 and will be in effect at least through Friday, January 30th. It's the organization's longest continuous code blue activation since 2022. You can find a list of local 24-hour shelters and other resources on fox43.com. And as frigid temperatures continue, farmers across the region are working to keep their animals safe from the elements. Fox 43's Matt Clandon spoke with local farmers about how they're adapting to the cold snap.
Farmers continue caring for their livestock as bitter temperatures sweep through the region.
It really doesn't change the day-to-day operations.
Greg Perry is spending the day tending to around 300 cows at Perrydale Farm. He says his staff is focused on providing enough water and shelter to keep the cows comfortable in the elements.
This weather they don't mind too much. Now next week when it gets to be 1 degree, if so, that's a little different.
Perry adds that younger calves who aren't able to produce as much body heat are given jackets to protect them from the cold snap.
They just tend to grow better if they don't have to waste their energy producing heat.
Brian Snyder says most of the cows will spend their time in the barn this week, giving them a dry place to eat. He also says it prevents them from injuring themselves out in the fields.
With the snow and ice on the ground, then it gives them a chance to fall and hurt themselves. In the barn, they really ain't gonna have that issue.
Farm workers say they will continue to monitor the winter weather throughout the week to ensure they can keep themselves and their animals safe.
As long as they stay dry and have a place out of the wind, they'll do just fine.
Matt Kleinden's Fox 43 News.
U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. kicked off a nationwide tour in Harrisburg this week, where he promoted his department's new dietary guidelines for Americans. Fox 43's James Corrigan has details of Kennedy's speech and the protesters speaking out against his vaccine policies.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was met with applause from supporters in the state capitol on the first stop of his Eat Real Food tour, promoting the new dietary guidelines from the Health and Human Services Department, prioritizing protein and whole-fat milk in the diet.
They told us for the last 40 years to eat as much as we could of refined carbohydrates. We're telling Americans it's time to start eating real food again.
Doctors save lives! Doctors save lives!
RFK's reception outside the Capitol was starkly different as protesters gathered to speak out against his dropping recommendations against common vaccines for children, including hepatitis B, meningitis, and the flu.
I have a problem when he talks about vaccines causing autism without any data to back it up.
I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have vaccines.
We want our kids to be able to reach adulthood and be healthy and have active, full lives.
Kennedy says those vaccines needed to be tested more, and that his new policies will give better information to doctors and their patients.
Only one of them has ever gone through a randomized placebo-controlled trial prior to licensure, and that was the COVID vaccine. The other ones, we don't know what the risk profile is.
Republican leaders in the House and Senate, along with Treasurer Stacey Garrity, stood in support as Kennedy spoke about rising rates of obesity and diabetes and lowering drug prices. He pointed to the Trump administration's focus on lowering chronic disease rates, while opponents pointed to the rise in measles cases nationwide and to demonizing vaccines, which have kept children healthy.
We're not going to be able to medicate ourselves out of this crisis with our children. We can't subsidize sickness forever.
We've seen deaths from whooping cough, completely preventable. This is the direct result of policies and rhetoric coming from RFK Jr., President Trump, and D.C.
Now, the secretary was asked about the new food pyramid and its reliance on saturated fats with red meat and whole-fat dairy. He says the science around saturated fats is not yet clear, but what is clear is our need to consume more protein. There are currently no announced dates in the future for the Eat Real Food tour, but it's become clear that RFK's message on food and his opponent's message on vaccines will dominate in 2026. James Corrigan, Fox 43 News.
Harrisburg Mayor Wanda Williams was in court after filing a lawsuit against the City Council over the funding of key administrative positions. During Wednesday's hearing, Mayor Williams testified that the city would be unable to renegotiate its contract with the police union and enact federal housing grants without its business administrator and economic development director. Attorneys for City Council, meanwhile, argued that Williams violated charter law by appointing 2 of the 4 positions without the council members' consent. They added that disputes between City Council and the mayor's office should be resolved outside of the courtroom.
The real concern here is that every time there's a budget dispute between a mayor and City Council over an initiative or a funding level, and we resort to litigation, then courts are deciding issues that really are to be resolved by the executive and legislative branches.
Attorneys from both sides say they will be submitting post-hearing briefs next week and that a ruling will come shortly thereafter. Police officers from across Pennsylvania and beyond are set to come together to support the families of their fallen brothers. The Cops for Cops benefit hockey game is set to take place on January 31st at the Giants Center in Hershey. The annual charity event is a chance for the law enforcement community to rally behind those grieving their loved ones who lost their lives in the line of duty.
It's all about the brotherhood and bringing everybody together, including the families impacted by the line of duty deaths. We start with pregame ceremonies that involves recognitions of the families. We continue to have family members from previous years that attend the game every year. So if there's one thing that's impactful, it's in the hopes that we impacted them in a positive light, that they feel it necessary to come back every year and support people now that are walking in their shoes.
This will be the 20th year that the annual game has taken place, and again, it will take place on January 31st with pre-game ceremonies starting at 12:30 at the Giant Center. We have more information, including how to get tickets to the event, on our website, fox43.com. A local EMT was the one who needed life-saving CPR last year when his heart stopped. Now, he's using his experience to help teach others about the important procedure. You've probably seen CPR on TV shows, dramatic, chaotic, and often happening in public. In this week's Health Smart Report, Fox 43's Amy Lutz takes a look at those portrayals and how they can shape real-life decisions, and speaks to an EMT who trains people to save lives.
At a UPMC CPR training center in Lemoyne, Cumberland County, Matt Warner counts out loud, elbows locked, pushing hard and fast.
You'll put one hand in the center of the chest.
This is what he does for a living, teaching strangers how to save a life. Though last year, Matt became the one who needed to be saved.
Farm Show 2024, I was working for Life Team in our first aid room. Was perfectly fine that morning, had no issues, no problems. And then next thing I know, I'm on the ground looking up.
Co-workers rushed in, starting CPR and grabbing an AED.
They did chest compressions on me for about 3 or 4 minutes. They delivered one shock off of an AED, and then compressions for about another minute, and then I woke up there.
At the hospital, doctors discovered a blockage in his heart, putting a stent in the 43-year-old EMT. Matt says survival often depends on who's nearby. Bystander CPR saves lives. However, only about 20% of people actually step in during an emergency. He says in part because of fear and myths they potentially see on TV.
Honestly, it probably puts more fear into them instead of less fear because it looks so intimidating and so traumatic.
That's exactly what University of Pittsburgh researchers wanted to understand, how TV shapes public perception of cardiac arrest. A recent study found one big discrepancy was that most TV shows depicted happening in public, even though more than 80% happen at home.
And that might be a barrier to getting training. If you think you're more likely to use this skill on a stranger compared to a loved one.
They also found many shows focus on mouth-to-mouth and pulse checks, even though the American Heart Association promotes hands-only CPR. Still, not all TV influence is bad. Scenes like the CPR episode of The Office have actually been credited with people stepping in to save lives in real life.
While a lot of these depictions aren't the greatest in the world, I think it's very empowering for people to see that, like, oh, this character on TV can jump in and save a life. I can too.
Just like that, a little bit faster.
For Matt, it's not about TV drama, it's about real people acting fast.
And they can't be sued. They don't have to do mouth-to-mouth. It's a simple recognition and just pushing on somebody's chest. Hey, hey, hey.
Because one day, the person on the floor could be someone you love. If you're interested in learning more about the University of Pittsburgh study, I've linked it to the story on our website, fox43.com. With your Health Smart Report, Amy Lutz, Fox 43 News.
Many people check the weather app on their phones these days, but how accurate are those forecasts? What goes into your weather apps and how much you should trust them? Well, you've probably seen a lot of different weather forecasts on your phone or social media focusing on the incoming snow this weekend. Some may be accurate and others not so much. Fox 43's Jacob Hitz breaks down how those apps create their forecasts and why it might be best to lean on your local meteorologist instead.
If you've checked your weather app or visited social media this week, you've probably seen something like this. That's Apple's weather app predicting up to 28 inches of snow for a storm 4 days out. My weather app sent me straight to the Weather Channel. That showed 8 to 12 inches. Kyle Elliott is the head of the Weather Information Center at Millersville University and says that different apps rely on different data to put together their forecast.
Deal is that there's so many different computer models out there that these phone apps are pulling from one or various ones of those different models.
Kyle says those models essentially make a best guess at the weather around the world, relying on things like weather balloon observations. They're the same models that we use when forecasting. When the models don't agree further down the road, you get varying results. But models are only part of the forecasting picture.
A lot of times we actually look at storms that happened in the past. We call those storms analogs. So we're trying to find a match from the past that kind of mirrors or mimics what we're expecting in the future. And when we do that, and if we do it correctly and we find the right matches, we can beat the actual models 95% of the time.
Then there are the things we see on social media, with one snapshot of a model that shows we could see a ton of snow. Kyle says those social media posts couldn't be more wrong.
That is just a model, one run of one model showing what it thinks the snowfall distribution is going to look like 3, 4, 5, 6 days down the road. Check back 12 hours later, that swath of snow could have shifted 200 miles north, 200 miles south. I mean, we see this all the time.
If there's one thing everyone should remember when it comes to tracking winter weather, Kyle says it's this.
My advice would be to follow a reliable source of weather information, a trusted meteorologist, either any of the local meteorologists here in the lower Susquehanna Valley. They're the ones who are most qualified to guide them. And they're also the ones that produce the most accurate weather information and know not to get specific, more than 2 to 3 days in advance.
Jacob Hitz, Fox 43 News.
A Harrisburg yoga studio is opening its doors to folks trying to escape the cold. Community Yoga Space offers daily classes. Some of the poses learned could be done at home, especially if you find yourself stuck indoors after this weekend's expected snowstorm. The class instructor says the space is available for anyone who wants to better themselves physically or mentally.
All classes offered are pay what you can if you can. The idea is making yoga accessible to everyone.
We have more information about what classes are offered on which days of the week online at fox43.com. Also in Dauphin County, Hershey Gardens is embracing winter weather as well. They've been hosting Winter Wednesdays this month, showcasing how plants and animals handled their winter season. Families have been able to interact with these creatures and even take part in some educational crafts.
They're wonderful opportunities to learn about how plants and animals experience winter, how they adapt for winter conditions. And again, we're highlighting some of our animals here at Hershey Gardens and plants as well, with games and activities and more.
This Saturday, they will be hosting a bird watching event from 10 a.m. till noon, where visitors will be taken on a guided walk and learn how to identify birds and what to feed them. Hershey Gardens will be hosting all sorts of other winter activities throughout the season. With America's 250th around the corner, Philadelphia is looking for actors to help bringing history to life. We'll show you how you can get involved. If you love history or you're looking to do some acting, the City of Brotherly Love is looking for you. Philadelphia is seeking actors to help celebrate America's 250th birthday this coming July. Fox's Shayna Ferreira has details on how you can help celebrate and show off your acting chops.
This year is special. We have so much programming, we have so many stories to tell, and we're expecting a lot of folks to come through here.
Historic Philadelphia is preparing for the big America 250 celebrations this year, and they're looking for fresh talent to be part of their team of actors and storytellers.
We have storytellers who wear a green polo shirt and khaki pants, and they tell stories to any visitors who come by. And then we have history makers who wear costumes, and they take on a full persona. So that they're also known as first-person interpreters. So Betsy Ross, for example, is a first-person interpreter.
Speaking of Betsy Ross, Claire Bronchick takes on the character regularly at the Betsy Ross house in Old City.
First-person interpretation. That's what I do as a history maker, as Betsy Ross. I am Betsy.
And to the best of my ability, I interpret her and what she would know. I'm not a history nerd by any point when I came into the job. That was something I was a little nervous about, but everyone here is so encouraging.
Bronchick says taking on this role as an interpreter is quite involved, including an audition process and tons of rehearsals, but says it all pays off.
We have this big binder with all the information you can ever need. It's really exciting to be able to educate the public. And if you are someone who's interested in history, if you are gregarious, if you like telling stories, if you are interested specifically in this time in American history and really Philadelphia history, then this is the place to be, I think.
So whether you're looking to be a storyteller or a history reenactor, Historic Philadelphia, they're looking for kind, passionate people who love history and who love Philadelphia.
Something that we are really looking for is to have our cast show what Philadelphia looked like then and what it looks like now. So that means everyone, age and race, things like that. We want everyone. No, I don't want anyone to feel excluded.
It's also a paid opportunity for actors and a chance to engage in a unique way with the millions of tourists from around the world expected to flood the city this summer.
We are looking for people who are trained actors, who are enthusiastic, who are reliable. And while we are very flexible with scheduling, we need people who are also a little bit flexible with us.
As we head into the 250th, I think it's a really exciting opportunity to learn about Philadelphia and America's past, because that's how we're going to shape our future, is knowing our past. And being part of that's really exciting.
Shayna Ferreira, Fox News.
The America 250 PA kickoff tour is underway, making stops in 67 counties to commemorate the nation's birthday. The tour stopped in Adams County at the Hotel Gettysburg this week. Local volunteers and county officials introduced America 250 representatives at the hotel. County officials say the role Gettysburg played in our country's history makes it an important part of the anniversary celebrations.
We wanted everybody to come together, and they are. They're planning events, they're getting behind this, they're volunteering, so everybody's really come together in a nice way, not just for today, but for what we have for the year to come.
Adams County will be hosting 250 events throughout the year for the semi-quincentennial, including the Gettysburg Film Festival, the Battle Anniversary, and a recreation of the Gettysburg Address in November. And that's going to do it for Fox 43 Featured. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. Have a good one.